Awesome. Here today with Jeremy, owner of Prime Contractor Supply, former attorney, going through a roll-up, had some crazy deal stuff happen this weekend, which I imagine we won't get into today. But thanks so much for joining.
Hey, man, you got it. I appreciate you having me.
So you were a white shoe M&A attorney, just a few short years ago, and now you're living outside of Pittsburgh. I own a number of companies out there doing a roll-up. So do you mind just sharing your journey in a nutshell?
So from Kentucky originally, Louisville, Kentucky, went to school at the University of Kentucky where I met my wife. After that, I went to law school at the University of Tennessee. I then graduated, went down to Charlotte, North Carolina, where me and my wife sort of started our professional careers. I was an M&A, so I was a mergers and acquisitions attorney as well as a commercial real estate attorney. We did a ton of work for bigger banks, bigger hedge funds, private equity funds. And so I got to see a lot of deal flow and really cut my teeth in that space. And after I had a chance to, kind of live in that world for a long time, I started investing in real estate back in 2016, built up a relatively substantial portfolio during the time that I was, with the firm. And so I was doing sort of the double dip, right? I was working my day job and then building the portfolio on the backside of it. So got to a point where me and my wife, we built a decent nest egg. And, into 2022, she realized like you are, slowly killing yourself doing all these different things. Why don't you just focus on one thing, stop doing everything? And so looked around, tried to get an understanding of like, hey, where's a good place to sort of house my talent and sort of build something that's substantial, that matters, that can really, have a material impact on the community. At the same time, the infrastructure bill had passed not that long before I really started focusing on my sector, which is underground infrastructure supply. And I liked the runway that we had ahead of us. I liked the idea of having sort of a surefire idea of like, hey, here's how much money is coming into the sector. Here's what the near term looks like. And then it was just a matter of how do I find a space that I can operate and really have a substantial impact. And so did what any searcher does, right? Went out into the market and started looking.
That's awesome. And if I remember correctly, the deal was originally mislabeled as a real estate deal. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The owner, he had a nice, quality business, supply business, and his broker, mislisted this deal on Biz Buy Sell. It was a real estate listing. I just happened to run across it. It literally was like real estate for sale. And it was this massive, parcel of land with what I knew at that point, were infrastructure materials, underground infrastructure materials. And so I was like, oh, that's something, assets, like I might as well just go check it out. And so I go and ride past, and sure enough, this is an operating business with, employees and action and, stuff is happening. And I'm like, wait, this is not at all what I thought this was supposed to be. But it was a wonderful sort of happy accident.
That's awesome. And what's the quick 101 on the infrastructure bill?
Quick and dirty top level sort of view of it. $1.2 trillion being shoved into the economy for infrastructure improvements as well as infrastructure growth, right? So it truly is sort of a Band-Aid on the bigger problem that covers different sectors of infrastructure. Infrastructure itself is a very broad term.
And how does that make its way down into the economy? So is that grants given to like state and municipal governments, or what does that look like?
It's a fantastic question, right? So it's appropriated in a number of different ways. The way it actually trickles down into the economy, though, is typically either a very low interest loan or a municipality, county, state, or it's a grant that's tied to a large scale infrastructure project, either, whether federal, state, local, county, depending on the size of the actual project and the scope of the project, and then how it ties into the sort of federal impact. That usually dictates how the money is spent.
Walk me through like where does kind of the underground infrastructure sit within the space? Why is it important?
What I focus on is stormwater, sanitary, also known as wastewater, potable water or water supply. That's the clean water we drink. And then last is erosion control. They all play some factor into underground infrastructure. Think of your local creek, right? A creek close to your house. That's there for a reason. It's how the sort of civil engineers designed the path of water to flow. And over time, more and more water is getting there because there's more houses or there's more surfaces where there's runoff. And so as that stuff, grows, they have to upsize those conveyance pipes, right? Which you call stormwater pipes. Same with sanitary, right? So they might have sanitary piping that might be made out of literal bricks, no joke.
Wow.
And so when they need to go in and do a sanitary, sewer replacement, what they're really saying is we need to go in and replace these old materials that are failing with these new materials that either won't fail, or at least we know they won't fail for 100 years, and we'll deal with it in 100 years.
I saw some on your LinkedIn. We'll throw them up here for people watching, but they're massive.
Yeah, it's fun, man. It's a really fun industry because it doesn't feel like it's real life. It feels like a toy store in some ways. Like some of the things we can create are just wild. Another key point about what I do and why I like it is the barrier to entry.
Sure.
On the distributor side, a lot of it's relationship based. A lot of the larger manufacturers won't even discuss starting up a distributor relationship with a startup. It's how they protect their established brands, or at least their established partners. On the manufacturer side, it's the typical reason that you don't see many new manufacturers in general, right? Building a plant takes years. Operations within that plant take another year, and then maintenance of that, and maintaining the overall operations for that plant, meeting the KPIs. It takes time, costs a lot of money, and in a lot of cases, not many small shops can do it.
And so within Prime, are your customers, like when you're wholesaling, are they typically the end agency at like the local level, or is it a contractor they've hired to do one of these infrastructure projects? What does that look like?
In my sector, we first start with the bifurcation of public and private. There's private jobs and there's public jobs. On the private side, think about a housing development. You have a massive piece of land, a bunch of grading, and then you have to put all the utilities in there underground. I come in from the water conveyance standpoint, but there's obviously other utilities like electrical, fiber, everything else.
Sure.
So that's private side. On the public side, that is municipalities, counties, cities, state, federal. They have certain projects they need to have done, whether that's improvements to establish infrastructure or building out new infrastructure for the growth of a city.
Sure.
In either case, they have a certain pool of money, and they have a competitive bid process for contractors who are going to do the work. On both sides of that, contractors are a piece of the puzzle. And so typically our end customer is the contractor doing the work for the particular customer that's asking them to do it. However, in some cases, obviously municipalities, cities, counties have their own, set of employees as well. And those employees, they're checking things, they're repairing things, they're doing sort of the maintenance part of it. Not heavy work, but
Sure.
one-off sort of here and there. And in that case, we service them too. But that is, I'd probably say less than 5% of our overall revenue mix. The majority is a mix of small, medium to large scale contractors.
And for the maintenance work, is there still like an RFP process, or do they just know, hey, if you need a part, call Prime?
That, yeah, that. And
So that's the relationship building of like building up that relationship, the brand recognition, knowing that they can call y'all.
Exactly. Just making it, sort of that's marketing 101. Like, how do they know to think of us when the time comes?
Yeah.
And, that's why you buy established sometimes as well, just that they know that, hey, Prime, formerly Sewickley Construction Products, but now Prime Contractor Supply. They've been there for 25 years. Just go down to Big Sewickley Creek Road, and there they are. The RFPs, to your point, that's contractors, who are bidding on these large projects, and then us bidding to them for those projects. And my goal when I bought into the space wasn't necessarily to continue doing what the last owner did. It was really to hyper speed and make it really efficient within our system. So the last owner would do about 4 bids in a week. So when I went in, being the animal that I am, I was like, how do we like supercharge this? So now we can do up to 115 a day with our system. And we, looped in foreign talent to help with the Philippines, to help with bid drafting, and built the system out to automate a lot of the functions. And
that is wild.
Yeah, just did a bunch of stuff. Yeah,
I imagine you have like there's a large spectrum from a contractor working on a subdivision to an interstate highway that's kind of federal. Without shitting on the government, what does your ideal project look like? How do those compare, contrast?
Yeah. So ideal project, I always think about things from like financials.
Sure.
financial statement perspective. So ideal project to me is like, which ones have the best gross profit margin?
Yeah.
It's always private side work. Because although it's a competitive bid model, it really isn't. That's a very relationship driven, sale from start to finish. And so typically, you're seeing much better margins on that side. And however, it's relationship driven. And so you can really only grow that as much as you can grow your tentacles, right? To touch on different relationship points. So that's, salespeople and all that stuff. On the public side, it's tighter margins, but it is, it's lowest bidder. So in some cases, public side can be pretty brutal because it is sort of a race to the bottom game, and the bigger players always win that. However, there are times when you can add value elsewhere, like for instance, picking up the phone when people call for, like for pricing, and just being really good about the customer service. Because even still, if you're off a few dollars here or there on a particular product, they're gonna go for like, hey, I at least know if I need something, or if something goes sideways, like Prime's going to step in and make it right and help me through the process. We built an entire back office system so that every bolt-on we have, we can buy them and effectively run that business from our back office. So
Sure.
we can sort of pull resources, do the whole efficiencies of a platform, PE sort of style platform company, and still be able to play in our sandbox, which is like a company that makes between 1 to 10 million a year in revenue. Because we don't have to compete with the big boys for those.
Sure. And how has the team structure evolved since you acquired the business?
That's what's awesome. I'm probably most proud about the fact that we built a really lean, really like nimble team. So when I bought the business, it was, as you can imagine, like, small business owner who's been in the game for a long time, sort of chisel to stone sort of business.
Sure.
QuickBooks was the most technology they had in the business. When I looked at it, I was like, all right, we got to inject some technology into it. And so the team was important, but I wanted a payroll light business, right? Labor light, because I'd rather rely on my system as much as possible and then leverage my system with the usage of people to create like a very efficient, like overall business model. That's what we did. So, my team on site at any given point, maximum 3 or 4 people, max. Overall, there's about 13 people on our team. Most are remote.
Sure.
So the team is fantastic.
I saw some awesome photos of y'all hauling massive piping and whatnot. Is that kind of last mile delivery or delivery generally? Is that something done by W-2 employees at Prime, or do y'all subcontract that out? What does that look like?
We do have a driver on staff. I've really tried to keep the amount we're delivering from our yard as low as possible when I can, because one of the value adds is like, all right, how much payroll do I need to add on? How much overhead do I need to have for each particular department? And if I can keep that number low, then I can really sort of maximize my bottom line. So we do have a driver on staff. We do handle local deliveries, but whenever possible, we're either having our manufacturer drop ship our products for us, or we're hitting 3PL. The more I can send a product and not touch it, the more margin we're going to cover.
Sure. And to round things out, I know you had an exciting weekend on the deal side. What can you share in terms of a sneak peek on where you're headed over the next year?
Oh man, my question of the day. So my company, when I bought it obviously as a distributor, but I bought it with the plan of really making it a platform company for a roll up. My goal is to buy, companies between $1 and $10 million revenue, companies that fit within our vertical and that can be added onto our platform. The awesome part about what I do though is between that revenue band, I don't have much competition for the big guys, and
Sure.
the small guys can't buy in that space. And so we can really, find a lot of value and be very valuable to the seller with the way we structure things. And so we're actually finishing up the first portion of what is now a 2-pronged deal.
Recently 2-pronged.
Recently 2-pronged deal. I won't say how it got to that point, but yeah, it recently became the case. So we're finishing up the first of that sort of 2-pronged set. So the goal is over the next 5 years, to do a roll up where we hit at least 5 companies on the platform, and try to be a heavy hitter. We're hoping to hit 50 million top line revenue across the collective portfolio. Make decisions from there.
Dude, that's exciting, and you're fixing our infrastructure problems, so it's a win-win.
Tackling one thing at a time.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.